Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're exploring the hidden security system that protects your mind every single day. And the fascinating thing is, most of the time, you don't even know it's there. Okay, so to really get our heads around this, think about it like this. You know how your body has an immune system that's constantly fighting off threats like viruses and bacteria? Well, your mind has its own version of that, a psychological immune system, and its main threat, anxiety. But here's where it gets really interesting. Just like an autoimmune disease where the body starts attacking itself, this mental defense system can sometimes backfire. Instead of helping, it can actually end up twisting our view of reality and causing way more harm than good. To understand how this all works, we've got to meet the management team that's running the show inside our heads. It's a model that Sigmund Freud first described, and it's basically a cast of characters that perfectly sets the stage for all our inner conflicts. So first up, we have the id. Now, you can think of the id as the wild child inside of you. It's all about raw, primal instinct. It runs on what's called the pleasure principle, which basically means it doesn't care about rules or society or consequences. It just wants what feels good, and it wants it right now. Then, on the complete other side of the spectrum, you've got the superego. This is your inner judge. You know, that little voice of perfectionism. It's built up from all the morals and values you've soaked up from your parents and society. It's always pushing you to be that ideal person. And who's stuck right in the middle of this constant tug of war? That would be the ego. The ego is the manager, the CEO of your mind, and its job is basically impossible. It has to somehow negotiate a truce between what the id wants and what the superego demands, all while trying to deal with actual reality. So let's see how this plays out in the real world. Imagine you see a brand new phone. Your id immediately screams, "I want it, grab it now." But then your ego, the realist, steps in and goes, "Whoa, hold on. You can't just take it. There are cameras and people everywhere." And finally, your superego delivers the moral verdict. Look, even if you could get away with it, stealing is just wrong. You can imagine that this constant battle between I want and I should creates a ton of anxiety. So, to keep the whole system from completely melting down, the ego reaches into its toolkit and pulls out its most important tools, psychological defense mechanisms. So, where does all this stressful, uncomfortable, and threatening stuff go? Well, the ego takes it and shoves it down into the deep, dark basement of the mind, a place we can't consciously access. We call it the unconscious. Now, the ego's number one tool for this job is repression. Think of it like a bouncer at the nightclub of your conscious mind. It sees an upsetting thought or painful memory trying to get in, and it just forcibly pushes it down into that unconscious basement so you don't have to deal with it. In fact, repression is so fundamental, so important to the whole system, that it's often called the father of defense mechanisms. The idea is that pretty much every other defense we have is built on top of this basic act of pushing something away. But here's the kicker. Out of sight definitely does not mean out of mind. Just because a thought is pushed down doesn't mean it's gone. Oh no, it stays down there, active, bubbling away under the surface, and it influences everything from our dreams to our weird habits, and even those little slips of the tongue. Okay, so what happens when that bouncer, repression, just can't handle the crowd? What if too much is trying to get through? Well, that's when the ego pulls out some of its other shields. Let's take a look at 3 of the big ones. Have you ever gotten some really bad news and for just a second, your brain just goes blank? Like it refuses to even process what you just heard. That gut reaction, that no, that's not possible. Well, that's a defense mechanism in action. That's denial. Denial is really just the simple, unconscious refusal to accept a truth that is too painful to handle in the moment. It's like your mind's emergency brake. It slams on the brakes to give you a little time before you have to face the full emotional weight of whatever just happened. Next up, we have projection, and this one is pretty sneaky. It's when you take a feeling you have, one that you find unacceptable, say intense anger, and you unconsciously pin it on someone else. So instead of thinking, wow, I am really angry, your mind flips it and you start thinking, why is that person so angry with me? And then there's splitting. This is basically the mind's inability to see any gray areas. It's when we can't hold 2 conflicting ideas at the same time, like the fact that people, including ourselves, are a messy mix of both good and bad qualities. And this gives you a perfect picture of the black and white world that splitting creates. In this mindset, a person isn't just a good friend who has some flaws. No, they are either a perfect angel, a savior, or the second they let you down, they become a complete devil, totally worthless. There is absolutely no in-between. So what's the big deal? Well, when we rely on these defenses all the time, they start to create what psychologists call psychological blind spots. They literally warp how we see the world, and it's a huge reason why we sometimes get stuck repeating the same mistakes over and over again. You know the blind spot in your car's mirror? It's the perfect metaphor. Just like that spot hides a whole car from your view, our defenses hide critical truths about ourselves and other people from our own conscious mind. We're essentially driving through life without being able to see the full picture. There's this ancient piece of wisdom that just captures this idea perfectly. The heart is deceitful above all things. It's this powerful reminder that our own minds, in this desperate attempt to protect us from pain, can actually become the master of hiding the truth from us.
So why on earth should you care about any of this? Why does it matter? Because simply becoming aware of these unconscious patterns is the absolute first step toward real self-awareness. It's how you start to break those old cycles and build a healthier life.
So let's just quickly recap the main takeaways. 1. Defense mechanisms are just the ego's tools for handling anxiety. 2. They work unconsciously. We're not doing this on purpose. 3. Everyone uses them. It's totally normal. The real trouble starts only when we overuse them, because that's when they build a wall between us and reality. And that really brings us to the most important point of all. The goal here isn't to try and get rid of your defenses, to tear down your inner guardian. The real journey is about getting to know it, understanding why it shows up, and maybe, just maybe, learning when it's safe to lower the shield and see the world and yourself a little more clearly.